Randy and Mary had been married for over 20 years, during which time they had 3 children, a dog, and a cozy country home. They had married when they were both in their 30s, a seemingly mature and well-considered decision. Randy's mother, however, was adamantly opposed to their marriage, constantly urging her son to find someone else. Mary was unable to get her mother-in-law's approval, and she persistently warned Randy that his choice could turn out to be disastrous in the future. Nevertheless, after the birth of their first child, the tension between Mary and Randy's mother subsided, and she became more supportive of her daughter-in-law. Although there may have been some truth to his mother's concerns, Randy refused to acknowledge them. Coincidentally, a few days before the wedding, Randy caught Mary in a room with another man. This man turned out to be the organizer and host of their wedding. When Mary explained that they were just discussing the wedding arrangements and the surprise she had in store for Randy, he decided not to ruin the moment by getting caught up in suspicion and confrontation. So he decided to believe Mary's explanation. For the past few years, Mary had been working for a reputable company specializing in design. She had gotten the position through their mutual acquaintance, John. John knew of her talents in the field and spoke highly of her to the company's superiors. She was grateful for the opportunity to work for such an esteemed firm. One day, Randy unexpectedly ran into John at the mall during business hours. John offered to grab coffee to catch up, and they ended up spending several hours chatting at a nearby coffee shop. Eventually, the topic of conversation turned to work, and John mentioned a challenging project their company was currently engaged in. It came as a surprise to Randy when John revealed that Mary was working alongside their best employee, Michael, overseeing the project. "Michael? Do you know him?" "He works with us," John informed when Randy expressed his surprise. Hearing this, Randy's face first turned pale and then red with anger. "How long has he been working with you?" he asked. "Yeah, about 2 years, if not more," John replied. Randy gritted his teeth. So it turns out that his wife has been working with a man who almost destroyed their family for over 2 years. And not only that, they also have joint projects and a close relationship. Randy was so furious it looked like steam was about to come out of his ears. He waited at home to talk to his wife and ask her a few questions. As soon as Mary walked in, her husband appeared from the hallway with an ominous look on his face. "What's wrong?" the wife asked in surprise. Randy was quiet for a moment, choosing his words carefully, and then informed her that he was aware of her work with Michael. "So," his wife replied, taken aback, "we're just coworkers." Of course she was being dishonest. Since Michael had reappeared in her life, they had become more than just coworkers or friends. They had a shared secret that they treasured dearly, but now it was on the verge of being exposed. Mary tried to remain calm, not letting her fear show. She gathered her strength and spoke to her husband without revealing anything. But nothing she said could calm him. He was seething with resentment inside, but he had no way to verify her words. He had to either believe or disbelieve her. A few weeks later, the hatred and sadness directed at Michael gradually began to fade. His relationship with his wife returned to normal, and he stopped venting his frustration on her. One evening, he received a phone call from John. "Listen, Randy," he said, "I'd like to meet with you. Come to my office. I'm just finishing up some work," Randy replied. For some reason, he suspected that John needed to borrow money from him until his next paycheck. Walking outside, Randy found John already waiting for him, smoking outside his car. They exchanged handshakes in greeting. "Do you need a loan?" Randy cut to the chase. Today had been a hard day at work, and he was exhausted and longed to be home in bed with his wife. John shook his head. "I can't keep quiet any longer. You're a decent man." He coughed and fell silent. The pause dragged on for about 30 seconds before John continued. "Michael, well, you know what I mean, don't you?" It finally got to Randy what he was trying to convey. His intuition had not failed him. He swore hard at his wife. "So you're in on it, then?" John exhaled in relief. "I suspected," John replied, and briefly recounted their story to him. Randy thanked John for his candor and got into his car, but instead of heading home, he drove aimlessly through the nighttime city. Thoughts raced through his head like a ticker tape. He pondered what to do with this newfound knowledge. To think his wife had been unfaithful throughout their 20-year marriage. To realize that she had been with Michael just days before their wedding for a reason. How foolish he had been to believe everything Mary had told him back then. He gripped the steering wheel so tightly that his hands were numb with tension, involuntarily leaving shallow fingernail marks in the leather upholstery. The man faced the most difficult decision of his life: to leave or to stay, to forgive or not to forgive. He carefully evaluated the pros and cons, considering every aspect of their relationship in light of the betrayal, but he still couldn't figure out what to do next. If he discovered that the infidelity was a one-time thing and had happened years ago, he would consider staying with his wife. After all, so much time had passed, and they had been through so much together. Besides, they had children. The youngest had just turned 14, an age when parental support was needed. How would he be able to break the news to her that her father would no longer be living with them? The thought of his daughter's reaction, her tears, made him realize that for her sake he was willing to put up with his wife's betrayal. The well-being of their children was more important to him than anything else, and he would do everything he could to keep the family together. That evening he plucked up courage and told Mary what he knew about her relationship with Michael. At first she was caught off guard and denied any wrongdoing, insisting that their liaison was purely business in nature. Eventually, however, she admitted the truth. Randy was right. Their relationship went beyond work. Hearing this personal confession face to face only increased Randy's pain, but he remained steadfast in his desire to keep the family together, at least until their youngest daughter turned 18. Mary agreed to that plan. As expected, there was no miracle. The problem persisted for the next 4 years. Moreover, it seemed to worsen. It became more pressing than ever before. When their children moved out of their parents' home, Randy and Mary were relieved. Finally, they no longer had to pretend to be kind and loving, but could be themselves. Mary wasted no time and moved in with her lover, Michael, while Randy remained living in their shared apartment. They filed for divorce, and within a month they were both released from their marital obligations. To Randy's surprise and happiness, he realized that a heavy load of lies and negativity had been lifted from his shoulders. The sense of freedom brought on by this new realization was unfamiliar but delightful. From time to time, they crossed paths at children's parties. After years of separation, their once acute hatred for each other had subsided, and they began to socialize as old friends. Both of them never gave up hope that they would finally find happiness.